The African Israelite Justice Foundation is not your usual legal practice. You see, we focus primarily on cases involving injustice against African Israelite groups or injustice against individuals because he or she identifies as an African Israelite or an Israelite of African descent. In other words, we are not a general legal practice. Instead, we specialize on African Israelite cases. And also, family, please keep in mind, we are a brand new organization, not affiliated with any existing organizations. However, it is our hope to establish connections with all African Israelite groups and people here in the States and around the world. Family, we need to hear your stories of injustice so that we can begin to record, investigate, and identify the enemies of Israel hiding behind the veil, and then ultimately hold them accountable in a court of law. And as stated before, we are a brand new organization with limited funds, and we are in the process of expanding our resources to further enhance our legal team who will litigate our cases. And if you would like to join this historic cause, please share this message all over social media. Spread this message of IsraeliteJustice.org worldwide. And get this message from Kyrie to Kanye, from Whoopi Goldberg to Nick Cannon. And also share your stories of injustice or donate to the cause. And if you so choose to, you can remain anonymous and let us do all the work. After all, that's what the Israelite Justice Foundation is here for. We are here to fight for your right to be Israel. As always, thank you in advance. We appreciate you and love you, Israel. Take care, family. Shalom. The House of Judah. As foretold by the prophets of old, scattered to the four corners of the earth, in shackles and in chains, only to remain in the land of their captivity until the time of the Gentiles would be fulfilled, as foretold by Hamashiach. You see, family, in previous lessons, we showed how the Israelites of old were a black Negroid race, confirmed and verified beyond a shadow of doubt through multiple sources. For example, we can find depictions of the ancient tribe of Judah in roughly 701 BC, living close to the Gaza Strip. Depicted on the smooth walls of the Lakesh relief as a Negroid people, having short, nappy, woolly hair, as described in the Bible. We also pointed out that a secondary source consisting of cranial analysis confirmed that the ethnicity of the inhabitants of Judah and Lakesh were Egypto-Nubian people, which would be expected because Israel lived in Egypt. And yet, today we have a war by a people claiming to be Israel who don't quite look like ancient Israel, whose DNA shows them to have originated from the biblical land of Ashkenaz, the lands of Japheth, located at the foot of the Caucasus Mountains. Shalom, shalom, family. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Shalom, shalom. Hopefully everyone's doing well. As you can see, I have a partner in crime. Pastor Kelly, are you how's your audio, Pastor Kelly? Just want to do a quick sound check.
Testing 1 2.
Oh,
testing
good.
1 2. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Peace and blessings. Hey, family, could you give us a 1 in the chat, please, if our audio sounds okay? If our audio sounds okay, family, if you can hear both me and Pastor Kelly, if you could put a 1 in the chat. Just want to do a quick sound check. We did one before we started, but I just want to make sure you all can hear us. Awesome. Thank you, family. Well, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Hopefully everyone's doing well. And Pastor Kelly, are you doing all right? Hopefully you had a great Shabbat.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. Cannot complain. Just so thankful to, like the old school say, be in the land of the living, especially during this time.
Amen. All this crazy stuff that's going on. Yeah, and if you all haven't checked out Pastor Kelly's Shabbat lesson for today, it's on the We Woke Now channel on YouTube. So if you go to search on YouTube, type in We Woke Now, and just check out today's service, because actually, Pastor Kelly did a lesson on Gog and Magog today, and that's what got me inspired to go ahead and drop this one, because I wasn't going to drop it today. I actually started thinking about doing this, making this like a later video. But after I saw Pastor Kelly's video, I was like, man, I need to go ahead and drop mine.
And actually, it's on the We Woke Now Extended, the backup channel.
Okay.
So just so that way everyone go to the right channel, because I created that because of the issues I was having with YouTube. So it's like, okay, let me create a backup channel, just in case I'm locked down, I could at least still have an outlet, so to speak. So yeah, so it's on the We Woke Now Extended. My apologies, guys.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's and it's awesome because the information that you went over, it touches on a lot of the information that I had in some of my previous Gog and Magog videos. And actually, I was sitting on some of the information because I was trying to save it for some upcoming, hidden Hebrew stuff. But I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get it out. With the current state of affairs in the world, who knows how much time we have left? You know what I mean? We could be in the wilderness. I don't want to be in the wilderness, sitting on this information. I kind of want to, just get this out beforehand, because, I mean, truth be told, man, I believe the Most High speaks to us all in different ways or whatnot, and I kind of alluded to this a couple of lives back that during Sukkot that I felt as though I had a visitation, and it's funny because so we have our I set up my dwelling place right off of the deck on the back of my house. So I had everything set up, had a nice little queen size bed. I'm telling you, fam, I had this thing hooked up. Queen size bed, lights, I had lights draped on the inside, nice comfy mattress and all this stuff, family. And it didn't get too cold. I think as far as like the temperatures outside, I think it got down to maybe like in the 50s. As far as like even like for the entire stretch of days that we observed it, or that I observed it. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty uneventful, sat out there with nature. You could hear nature. That was the most peaceful thing for me. But then I don't remember what day it was, or what night it was. But all I remember was one of the nights that right before I woke up, I had a dream. And it was one of those things. When I woke up, I immediately grabbed my phone and I typed the dream as well as I could remember it in my phone to save it, because I didn't understand what it meant. And just to share it for the first time here, this is the first time Pastor Kelly's hearing it too. But I wrote it down, and actually, let me see if I can pull it up on my phone here so I can make sure I don't tell you something wrong. Let me see if I can find it here. Bear with me just for a second, family. Let's see here. There it is. Dream. So let's see. Nitro leaving complex. Oh, that's a different one. All right. Well, I'll just tell it to you off the top of my head. I'm trying to find it here, family. I don't necessarily see it on my phone. Yeah, previous 30 days, use presentation. Okay. Oh, let me see. I think this was it. Yeah. So in my dream, as I was sleeping, it was like it was this odd dream, and it was like as I woke up, as you can imagine, like a stage, right? And in this stage, you have two ladies, two women,
and they're facing each other. And then there's a person of authority right next to one of the ladies, kind of like a police officer. And what he's doing is that, as you're coming into the scene, you're watching this police officer or this person of authority. He's forcing one of the ladies to give back what she stole to the other lady. And you can look at him. He had the stern look on his face, and he was forcing her. He's like, give it back, give it back. And then so what she did, she kind of reached into a pocket and she took this. I can't really explain what it was, but all I remember is that it was dirty. It was filthy. It was covered. It had layers of filth on it. And he made her give it back to the other lady. And so the other lady took it, and she's looking at it, and you can tell that she's disgusted at the state that it's in, because it's dirty, it's filthy. And she almost has to scrape off the layers of filth just to get to the item that's underneath. And so as I'm looking at this, I was like, oh man, he's making her give it back. And immediately what I thought was like, I have to go and put on my clothes. So I'm running, I'm running, and going through this this building, this complex. It's like best way I can explain it is like an apartment. And as I'm running, and then I come across this entrance to it, this one of the apartment rooms, and of course it has these bin of clothes outside the apartment. And I'm looking through the bin of clothes, and as I'm going through, I'm noticing, hey, wait a minute, these are my clothes. Wait a minute, this is my house. And as soon as I said, this is my house, I woke up. As soon as I said, this is my house, I woke up. And as I woke up, I'm outside in this tent. I'm outside in my dwelling there, and I'm noticing it's early in the morning. The sun hasn't come out yet, and there's this drop of water dripping on my dwelling, right above me in my dwelling. It's like a constant drop, drop, drop. And so that's when I woke up, and I wrote it down on my phone. I was like, man, that was weird. That was, was it some bad burritos? was it a bad movie that I saw? Who knows, right, family? So I had no idea what that was. But of course, then all of a sudden, all this stuff comes about with Israel, whatnot. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, Most High, are you trying to tell me something, about about these days and times we're in, or that we're approaching? So I don't know, family. I'm just making note. I'm just writing down these things for posterity's sake, and we'll see where it goes from here, family. We will see. So all that being said, let's get into it, family. So the discussion for today is Gog and Magog. And I know on the screen you'll see Gog, Magog, Esau, and Ephraim. What is Ephraim doing on there? So during the research, family, one of the things that, especially when me and Morey Yahusha were doing some of the research on like the Germany and things like that. And shout out to Big Chief Morey Yahusha, Morey Moshe, double honors to the chiefs. And so as we were doing this research, as I was doing this research, one of the things I came across Gog and Magog, right around the area of the Caucasus Mountains. And what I found was that, not only was it Gog and Magog, but it seemed as though that there was a I guess the best way I can put it is it was a mix of people in that area, right? It wasn't just Gog and Magog, but we also found vestiges of Esau and vestiges of the 10 tribes of the northern tribes. And for brevity's sake, I just put Ephraim on the screen. But for the purpose of this discussion, hopefully we'll just plan on talking about or discussing Gog and Magog. Because if I didn't, this would be a 300, 400 page presentation. and that's something I don't want to do. I know, Pastor Kelly, you don't want to be up here all night on discussing this stuff. So just want to be mindful of everyone's time.
That sounds like one of my presentations, 300-400 pages.
Oh man. I try to whittle it down. So if I go too fast, family, like just after we finish our live, just feel free to go back and go through it at a slower pace if you feel the need. But yeah, family. So just to kind of do a brief recap of where we are. So if you saw the intro, we previously, and especially in the previous videos, I always like to point to the fact that there is tangible indisputable facts, proof, archaeology out there that we so-called African Americans, we so-called Negroes, we so-called Black folks of the diaspora are the people of the book. And one of the proofs that we put out there is the Lakesh relief, which is in the London Museum. If you go to the London Museum, which I've done several times, multiple times in previous videos, you look at and you'll go to the Lakesh. Go to the London Museum, their Lakesh relief presentation, and then especially online, you'll find, I forgot the number. I think it's like 494599911, something like that. But in either case, what you'll find is that they have depictions of the children or the tribe of Judah during the time of around 701 BC. Right, around 701 BC. And when you look at it, and I just took a little screenshot of this is a small part of that relief, but you'll see that the Israelites were depicted as a Black Negro people. And the reason why I can say that confidently is because of two things. One, you can easily look at the picture or the statue or relief, and you can see that they have short, nappy, woolly hair. What I tell people is that, if you get somebody that wants to be argumentative about it, go and ask a 2-year-old to break the stalemate. Go and ask a 2-year-old, hey, does that look like a black person or a Chinese person? Does it look like a Black person or a Russian person? And 9 times out of 10, that person, I'm confident, will tell you that looks like a Black person. And as I'm talking, Pastor Kelly, I know I have a time to tend to kind of rattle on a little bit. So, but yeah, feel free to interject at any point in time, Pastor Kelly. But I think you're on mute, guys.
Okay.
But so that's one of the proofs that we put out there. Lakesh relief. Take a look at it visually. You can see that it was a Negroid people, and in addition to that, there was a mass grave site that is also at that Lakesh site, which is the city of Lakesh, because a mass I guess you can call it a mass murder, but the Assyrian army conquers that city. Unfortunately, lots of brothers and sisters, brothers particularly of the tribe of Judah are murdered or killed, and then so they are put into this mass gravesite. And so in this mass gravesite, they have over 600 skulls, and they've done analysis on. And when they did analysis at those 600 skulls, they said all of the skulls, not just some of them, all of the skulls they classified as Egypto-Nubian, right? And so we know that there's no argument about what Nubian means. So, and Egypto, we look at that as additional proof that these are the people of the book, because we know that the children of Israel went to Egypt, and so their skulls are Egypto-Nubian. So this is one of the two proofs that we put out there. I mean, there's many, many more, but this is just like the basic proof that you can put out in front of people to show them that, yes, we are the people of the book. And again, we do have other videos that actually tie us into being the people of the book, because it's like in 2 phases. Phase 1, show that the people of the book were a Black Negroid people. Phase 2, show that you are those Black Negroid people. So, and I haven't really done that in recent videos. I do have previous older videos that I touch on that in a little bit more detail. But as far as like phase 2, but definitely phase 1, we have that taken care of. All right. And let me just advance the slide. And as far as like the other proof that we put out, and thank you, Pastor Kelly, for this one, it has to do with DNA. And this is the DNA paper research that Pastor Kelly actually shared with me. And this is a DNA where it was released on, let me look at the date. I think I captured the date on the next slide. No, didn't. I left that one out. I believe this was like October 8th. So as Israel was going through, exchanging hostilities between them and Hamas, this paper comes out, or this article comes out, and basically they're trying to say, hey, we've found the ancient Israelites. We've gotten their DNA. We've extracted DNA from these ancient bones. And what I tell folks is that like that is a game changer, or that was a game changer when it comes to proving our true identity, because what we're able to do now is we're able to actually compare our DNA to ancient DNA. Like when they go to these archaeological sites, they extract DNA from the old bones, usually it's like a tooth or something like that, or bone marrow. They'll take it out, they'll categorize it, and then we can compare our DNA to that, to that DNA. And so this is something that they did, and they posted, partial results on the 8th of October. And when you go through the article, it's funny because, me and Pastor Kelly were talking about this. It's funny, as you're going through the article, they actually tell you where these the origin of these people, right? The origin of the people that they're calling these Israelites. And I have it on the screen. I'll just read a little bit of it to you. And it says, the highlight of the very, very partial results is that the Y chromosome in the man belongs to the J2 haplogroup, a group of closely related DNA sequences that is believed to have originated, and stress the point, originated. In other words, it comes from, and it says, in the Caucasus or Eastern Anatolia, a vast area including modern-day Eastern Turkey, Northwest Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Southern Russia, aka the territory of ancient Ashkenaz. So this was another proof that we put out there to say, hey, according to DNA, and this wasn't something that was up for debate, right? Because there's a general consensus that when you take a look at these DNA haplogroups, and if you not sure what a DNA haplogroup is, it's just a grouping of certain individuals that have a certain mutation, a shared mutation in their DNA. And so they're able to group them. And within this particular article, they're talking about a haplogroup or a grouping that's called J2, right? And this is one of the many haplogroups that's found in modern day Ashkenazi Jews. And based on this DNA research, that J2 comes from modern, ancient Ashkenaz. So that's what was so fascinating about this article, and that's why I shared it in our previous video. But then, if you move forward, so I just wanted to build on top of that and kind of move into our Gog and Magog discussion. So if you look on the screen, you'll see a map that says World Map of Y DNA haplogroups. So again, these are the groups that I was referring to earlier. And basically in this map, it shows you where they believe these haplogroups came from. So if we zoom in, and I know it's very busy, and the thing that I don't like about using StreamYard, and Pastor Kelly, maybe there's a feature in here where it can capture your mouse and show you if you're pointing to an area. I don't know if StreamYard will let you do that or not.
Now, are you doing it with is this in your PowerPoint?
It's in the PowerPoint, but I actually uploaded it to StreamYard.
Oh, no. See, the better way to do it is if it's in your PowerPoint, share your PowerPoint, and then you can zoom in with your PowerPoint.
Okay.
So you see how it's kind of like pixelated,
Yeah.
so you can control that more if within PowerPoint, because PowerPoint has the zoom in feature.
You know what? Let me try to adjust this on the fly. Let me see if it will let me do it. So if I do share screen, hang on, family, I'll do window, PowerPoint, share. Okay. And I'm going to see if it can pick up when I go to a presentation mode. Let's see. Hang on.
Now, if you put it on PowerPoint, right, make sure you put your PowerPoint in presentation mode, and then you'll see your mouse over on top of the PowerPoint. There you go. See, I see your mouse now.
Oh, good. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Pastor Kelly. I learned something today.
Yeah. And then if you want to zoom in at the bottom right of your screen, you'll see there it is. You see it. Go to the left, rather. And you see
I see it. Okay.
Yeah. So you see the magnifying glass there. If you click there, then you could click on an area that you want to zoom in on.
Oh, perfect.
And it's clearer. It's not pixelated.
Perfect. Thank you.
And just real quick, for those, if your screen is not showing up clear on your end, then you just may want to check your your connection, because depending on your connection and the bandwidth, then it may not be as clear as it is from what I see and what we see on our end.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Pastor Kelly. So Yeah, and because one of the things I wanted to show you, I just wanted to show you like where the where these DNA groups were located. So for example, the scientific article that we read was talking about the J2 haplogroup. So and this is just a second confirmation of what that article is talking about. So that article said that J2 is originated or comes from the area of Armenia, and let's see if I can do a backspace here to go to the previous slide. But Armenia, basically, it's around this area right here, and just wanted to show you that on this map. Hang on one second, see if I can advance. There we go. All right, hopefully that's not pixelated. Okay, and so if you take a look at the screen now, so this is a map of the table of nations. So this comes from a Bible atlas, and you'll see a couple of circles. You'll see circles 1, 2, and 3, and then 4 off to the right. So circle 1 represents the seat of Satan, of Hasatan, as described in the Bible. So this is the area, just roundabout where that's located. Area 2 is, according to this table of nations, you'll see Magog. And one thing I'll note here is that sometimes, or what you'll find throughout history, is that some of these groups will move over time. So this is just the starting place, right? But as you progress through time, you have wars, you have people migrating, that sort of thing. And in maps, you'll see Magog go from here to a different place. And I actually do have a map that shows you Magog moving. All right, and so then you have circle number 3, and this is what we were talking about, Ashkenaz. And this is where the haplogroup J is located, like where it originates. And again, this is according to DNA studies. And then last but not least, and this kind of ties into what's going on today, you'll see number 4, which is Iran, off to the right. All right. And let me see if I can advance my screen. Oh, and just one quick note, family, is this color that you see, this territory that you see, it represents Japhet. Like all this is Japhet. When we talk about Magog, when we talk about Ashkenaz, when we talk about Iran, we're talking about Japhet. All right, we're talking about Japhet. And just to tie this into some places, some scriptures on the Bible, this is from the Jewish virtual library, and this is about the Medes, right? And it says, just to read the highlighted portion here, it says, the Assyrian kings distinguished 2 groups of Medes inside the empire, and the distant Medes. In the biblical passage enumerating Noah's sons, Madiah, or I may not be pronouncing that right, Madiah, the progenitor of the Medes, like those of the other Indo-Iranian peoples, is included among the sons of Japhet. So the sons of Japhet. And you can find this in Genesis chapter 10, verse 2, where it reads, the son of Japhet, Gomer, Magog, Madiah, or Madi. How do you pronounce that, Pastor Kelly? Or is that, we'll just say that's close enough. You might be on mute.
Which one? Madai?
Yeah, is that it? Madai?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the takeaway there, family, is that when you talk about like Iran, you're talking about Japhet. So we're all talking about Japhet. When we're talking about Magog, when we're talking about Ashkenaz, when we're talking about Iran, we're all talking about Japhet, right? And then we're talking about, then we come to 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 6. And I just put this in here just so that you can understand that the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, when they were carried away, some of them were actually taken to Iran or the Medes. And you can find this, like I said, 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 6. And it says, in the 9th year of Hosea, the king of us. I'm sorry, let me start over again. It says, in the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them into Halah and in Habor by the river Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. All right. And so if we go back to our map, if we go back to our map, I'm going to use that zoom function that you were just telling me about, Pastor Kelly, and I'm going to zoom in right here. All right. So as you can see, This is this light part where it says, where it says J2 Middle East. This is the area of Iran, right? It's over in this area. I think you have Iraq, and then you have Iran on the backside of that. But we used to have this elder that would say, you're going to learn something on your way to learning something. Let me show you something real quick, family. I actually didn't pick this up until today.
And real quick too, because two things, and that you probably can recover it too. This is where you get into a lot of the deception, because when we start looking at DNA, right? DNA, when you start studying the history of DNA, when we start looking at how DNA is being used, it started in 1948. You guys know what happened in 1948, right? So initially, what DNA was what they were trying to use DNA for was to determine the aptitude, who's smarter than who. And it was really trying to push the narrative of sort of similar to Samuel Morton, who was a specialist with craniums. And to your point of what you brought up earlier about the craniums that he was able to examine from the catacombs, over 750 of them, he determined who's who. He said that Negroes, right? And this is assessment back in 1866. 1840 or 44, but on page 66 of his publication, he said that the Negroes, just like in the ancient ancient Egyptians, he said the Negroes was numerous and all through Egypt, right? And he compared the Negroes that was numerous, that was enslaved in Egypt, said that their social position is the same as we are today. But when he meant today is during his time while we was enslaved. So the point that I'm making, though, part of his study with the cranium, research that he was trying to push is that your cranium can determine your aptitude. The larger your cranium, according to him, right, means the lower education, the lower intellects, right? So I'm saying that all to say is to tie into that map that you shared. Can you go back there, cuz? Right now, when you see the haplogroup, zoom into the area that you had, but zoom towards Northeast Africa to the area where Israel would be. Right now, notice they had that whole territory highlighted with the J. So this is where, again, going back to Professor Elhake, rather, excuse me if I'm butchering his name. He made some important gave us important clarity of how this could be deceptively misused depending on who you're comparing to your DNA to. So with him, he was saying, like, if you're trying to compare whether or not you're from a certain part of this territory, and you comparing it to someone in an English person, and you don't include all the people or everyone, then of course it's going to say that your closest match will be closer to whoever you pull from this region, right? And that's part of the problem. So when you look at here, notice on this map, notice where in that whole region, where is E? Because it's not showing an overlapping of E. Like even just when we look at, you got E3, E1, all of those are still from E, right? And E is supposed to go all the way to Northeast Africa. So that whole area that you highlighted where Israel is actually part of Northeast Africa.
hey, Pastor, because let me just,
sorry.
Oh, no. I just want to land back on that real quick. So to Pastor Kelly's point, on the left, hopefully you can still see the mouse here, but you see E3A, right? And so for so-called African Americans and a lot of people in the diaspora, the haplogroup that's assigned to us is, it goes by a couple of different names. It's funny because you'll see them change the names over time. But so at one point it was E1B1A, but then they changed that to E3A, right? And so to Pastor Kelly's point, you see E3A on the west coast of Africa. And then you also see that, E3A, according to the Bantu, there's a Bantu migration, a well-known Bantu migration, and it goes down into South Africa. Well, this is one of the things, Pastor Kelly, I didn't notice until today, right? Throwing the presentation together. So you see where it says E3A family? So there's an arrow that comes into that, right? That brings E3, where it shows E3A kind of migrating to that area, right? Where does the arrow for E3A come from? If you follow it back, where do they have it coming from? If you notice, they don't have it coming from anywhere in Africa. So to your point, Pastor Kelly, and they have it coming from the Semitic territory.
Yeah.
And that
is so. Oh yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. Sorry. No, go ahead, because I thought you was finished. I'm sorry. When I heard you pause, it sounded like you was finished.
Oh no, dramatic pause, but pause. But no, I was just going to say, and that's according to what Pastor Kelly was saying. That's according to DNA analysis of the people that's walking around today. But go ahead, Pastor Kelly.
And then the other deception that you'd see is that centerpiece where it says R1B. Because the R1B in the center of Africa, right? If you go down lower to the center.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. So you got this R1B in the center, and they're saying that these people, because R will point to the Europeans.
Yep.
So it's a lot of, and I'm just pointing out some things that, some questionable things. And this is where we go back to when we deal with DNA and going on to another point here. Notice where's E1B1?
Yeah, I don't see it on here. I think that's like an older designation.
Yeah. So, and family, this is why just piggybacking off of what my cousin pointed out is how they're changing the DNA, the information before our eyes, because E1B, right? You have E1B1A, E1B1B. E1B1B would refer to the Egyptians, those that are in that same Northeast Africa territory. The E1B1A will be referred to us, but still in that same area. But to your point, as you see, you have E3B2, E1A, E3A. That can make it so confusing if you really don't understand the DNA from even just 5 years ago. You'll see that they're constantly changing to make the DNA fit a narrative, and that narrative is that other Israel, so to speak, that Israeli trying to force a triangle inside a circle space.
Right.
And that's what we see here, even with this map on some of the information that's here. So I just want to point that out to the people, for those that may not fully understand what they're seeing. And you hear E1B1A and you look here, it's like, well, where's E1B1A? But we see J there in that territory. And J is that's a whole nother discussion. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yep. And actually, to your point with that R1B, because I did have someone reached out or made a comment about R1B, because in some of those in the that article, in the articles that I shared, it'll say something like, well, R1B is associated with, and it shows you like the area of the Caucasus Mountains. But he made the point that, and he made the point that you just made, Pascal, is like, yeah, well, you have R1B in Africa. True, but if you notice, there's like a little bitty designation afterwards, like R1B-V88, like that's like a subgroup, right? And we made in those articles that we shared, we made sure that the places that the R1B that it was referring to was the R1B M269, because M269 is the one that is from the Caucasus, Armenia, like this place here in the map. And then you can also see where you have this line going into Europe, right? And that's the R1B M269. But for the journey that's going down into Africa, that's a different subgroup. So that's just answering the question that was out there, that was brought up. Yeah, but good observation, perfect observation, Pastor Kelly. All right. So let me see if I can advance the slide. All right. So just wanted to bring that up just to show you that in our previous, in the previous videos, in the previous lessons, we showed that according to DNA, according to the articles, according to the scientific research, R1b is in the Caucasus. J2 is, part of J2 is in the Caucasus, in the area or in the territory of biblical Ashkenaz or the territory of the Khazars. And what I wanted to show you is let me see if I can advance my slide here. All right. So there's additional research, and we brought this out as well. I'm not sure, Pastor Kelly, did you bring this one out? I think this is another one of your sources. Not sure. Just want to give credit where credit is due. You might be on mute if you're on mute.
Yeah, because that actually the LA Times initially had an article that they published years ago about the the origins of the modern day Ashkenazi Jews, and pointed it in that article. It was to 337 individuals in the Middle Ages to this territory. Yep. And so they also, from that article, they was making reference to the article, the publication that was on Nature Communication.
Yep, which is this one. I think this is one of the copies of it, right? So to your point, Pastor Kelly. So in that article, they basically found what they're calling a founder group. So if you can see on the screen, it says Ashkenazi Founder Event, and basically what this article / research was saying was that they said all modern day Ashkenaz come from this founder group. So this small group of around like Pastor Kelly said, like 300 something people. I think this was in Italy, right? I think that was the area that they were in. But so in Italy, this founder group, was there, and they said that based on the DNA analysis, and this is the type of DNA analysis that they did in this one family, was that they excavated ancient DNA, and this is part of the point that Pastor Kelly was making earlier, was that so when you look at DNA research, there's different types of DNA research. So early on, when you go to ancestry.com, 23andMe, right, you run your DNA, and they do the autosomal DNA analysis. Basically, at the end of the day, DNA is comparing one people to a certain group, right? They're taking your DNA and comparing it to a group of people around the world to see what modern day group, what group of people walking around today that your DNA closely matches, right? And that's one type of DNA analysis, right? But the other type of DNA analysis, which was a groundbreaker, I think this is the DNA analysis that actually was able to cement our claims or our declaration that we are the children of Israel. And that is when they were able to extract DNA from ancient DNA. So you go to these archaeological sites, and they take, extract the DNA from, like I said earlier, from like tubes and stuff like that. And then we're able to compare our DNA to that ancient DNA. That's when things change, because, family, over time, you have migrations, you have wars, you have, catastrophic events. And so, the DNA in a certain area may change over time. But when you're able to take that time capsule, so to speak, and compare your DNA to ancient DNA, that's one way to, to kind of cut through all of that stuff. Right. And so that's what this article did. So this article it analyzed ancient DNA from about, I believe it was like the 1400s. And when it analyzed it, they said that, hey, well, according to this group that we have, these people are the founder group of modern day Ashkenaz, right? And basically what they did was that they broke it down into two groups. You'll see this highlighted arrow here. So the two groups there was one group that kind of pointed to the Middle East, and there's one group that, they're calling it Eastern Europe, but at the end of the day, this is a definition of the two groups. I'll just read it for you. It says, group one was, Southern European, Middle Eastern, Egyptians, Bedouins, Palestinians, Jordanians, Syrians, Saudis. That's one group. The other group that was a founder group for the modern day Ashkenazi was, they're calling it Eastern Europe, but you'll see in comma there or brackets it says Russians, right? Russians. And basically, and when you really take a look at it, it is the territory of the Khazars. The territory of the Khazars. And the reason why we know it's the territory of the Khazars, and actually before I go to the next slide, just one quick note here, family, because remember at the beginning of our slide, I showed you that the it's in that territory of the Khazars. It's a mix of a couple of people, Gog and Magog for sure, but also Esau, and also some of these other groups like the 10 tribes is what we'll get into a little bit later on. But according to DNA, as far as the Ashkenazi is concerned, as far as like this particular research is concerned, you'll see that even in this research, you'll see one group that kind of points to Esau, which is that first group. When you're talking about the Bedouins, the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Jordanians, the Syrians, the Saudis, straight up Esau. And then you have the Eastern Europeans, and that's another group, and that's when we talked about the Khazars, right? And the reason why, and if you dig into that report, in that report they actually show you the ancient DNA that they extracted. And when they extracted that ancient DNA, they then were able to categorize that ancient DNA into haplogroups. And this is what I have highlighted on the screen. And right now you'll see, R1, B1, and then you'll see some letters and numbers after that. But the main thing here, family, is that this is R1B, this is M269, right? M269. Basically, the ones that are highlighted, they have their origin goes back to ancient Ashkenaz. Ancient Ashkenaz. And again, this is per DNA analysis. There isn't a lot of wiggle room based off of that. And you'll also see the J2As, right? J2 and then a bunch of numbers and letters after that. Same is up here, J2A, numbers after that. Same thing, family. That goes back to biblical Ashkenaz. And then you'll see one that says E1, B1, and then a bunch of letters and numbers after that. That goes back to what we refer to as Esau, right? So again, even in the founder group of the Ashkenazi, you'll find these different DNA groups which match up to these different biblical nations: Gog, Magog, Ashkenazi, Esau, and then there's one other one in there that we'll talk about in a little bit. Just to show you on a map. So this is from the biblical Bible Atlas. So you see Ashkenaz, and you also see, we talked about migration. M269 was below, at one point in time, it was below the Caucasus Mountains, but then over time, you'll see it above the Caucasus Mountains in the territory of the Khazars. And this is an old 1874 map. And again, this speaks to, people kind of moving around in different places. So in this map, you'll see Gog, Magog, right where Pastor Kelly was talking about it was, right? In that land of Ashkenaz. But all of a sudden, you see Ashkenaz over here to the left, whereas before it was right underneath the Caucasus Mountains, but now you have it over to the left. So people, the takeaway here is, families, that people move around. And just wanted to include this map in here just so that you can see the kingdom of the empire of Khazar, that is all in the same place, right above the Caucasus Mountains. Same as the Yamnaya, right? So before the Khazars came into...
Because, can you go back to the previous map real quick?
Yeah, this one right here?
Yeah. And family, just to my cousin's point, is when you look at, for example, the Khazarian Empire, you see where it says Crimea, right? That whole area, when you do your deeper dive with the Ashkenazis, Ashkenaz, you'll see that Ashkenaz is interchangeable with the Scythians or the Scythians. And when you do your deeper dive on the Scythians, you'll see modern day Russia, Ukraine, and you also see Crimea. So all of this, we see Khazaria, all of that is Russian. All of that is still to Benaya's point. Is still Benaya's point is still tying into Japheth, right? All of these different areas that you see here in this Black Sea, and then you'll see. And I'm not going. I don't want to get too far ahead because on the other side to the right, you'll see Caspian Sea. So you'll see these key names that where you see Gog, Magog, Meshach, Tubal. You'll see Meshach and Tubal. Those are actually Russian territories. Meshach is actually Moscow. So I'll turn it over to you because I don't want to get ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish that TKO. TKO.
Now, the one thing that's interesting is about the Scythians. When you study about the Scythians, they migrated. They were migrating you'll see them connected to pretty much all of Japheth's descendants. You'll see them intermingling with Gog, Madai, all those that you see, Madai, Tubal, Javol, Meshach. You'll see that the Ashkenazis, and I'm quoting from I don't know if you remember the thing with Dr. Mike Brown, when he said that the Ashkenazis, Jews, migrated. He didn't say that they were enslaved, they migrated. It's a difference of being scattered and enslaved versus being immigrants. But what he said that his quote, that they migrated to the German area, and they knew that Ashkenaz points to the Germans by way of Gomer, and so they took on the name. And you'll see that the Scythians had a tendency of traveling, migrating to different territories, the attributes of them, and they are taking on wherever they are. Sort of like when we see some of the descendants of Esau, right? They are going to different territories and mixing and mingling with those with their cousins. You know what I mean? Yep. Taking identities or taking on identities, of whatever territories they migrate to. They kind of like the ancient gypsies, so to speak. So, but I just want to give a little share some light on that. What we see modern day, when we see Russia and Ukraine, they are cousins, they are relatives. That's family. That's a family affair going on, a family feud. All right. So I'll turn it over to you, Benaya.
Yep. No, they are, and just to make sure everyone picked that up. So the Ashkenazi today and the people in this Khazarian empire, when you look at the DNA, it is the same, right? So when we talk about, DNA haplogroup, or that R1b haplogroup, that's the same haplogroup. Let me go back. This is just to kind of prove your point, Pastor Kelly. So remember, this list, this list is a list of the ancient DNA of the Khazars. I'm sorry, of the Ashkenazi. So this is so all Ashkenazis come from this group, based on this research paper. And if they come from this group, within this group is the R1b1, right? And the R1b1 comes from the territory of ancient Ashkenaz. It comes from the territory of the Khazars. So to Pastor Kelly, they are the same, right? They are the same. And I actually do have a slide a little bit further down where it shows the actual DNA of the Yamnaya, which are the same as the Scythians, which are the same as the Khazarians. R1b1, exact same DNA, right? So same people, different place. All right, family. Well, let's just move forward just a little bit. So it says mass migration from the steppe, and just to point out something here. This is the point that we were making about the DNA. So where it says steppe, family, that's the territory of the Khazars. And that's another thing that kind of may throw folks off as you're doing this research. That area of the Khazars has like a couple of different names. sometimes it's called Khazar, sometimes it's the Scythians, sometimes it's called the steppe, right? But in this particular research, the reason why I included that in this presentation is just to show you that even when they're looking at the ancient Yamnaya, so what in this particular research, they dug up the ancient Yamnaya, the old bones. They had 7 of them. They ran the DNA, and it was M269, right? M269. So, and that's why when you look at some of these maps, as far as where M269 comes from, we can say it with confidence where that DNA haplogroup comes from, and that's because of the analysis that they've done on these ancient DNA groups. And this is just another paper, another research paper. Let me just go back just so that you can see the name of it here. And this one's interesting because I like graphs when I do these presentations. And so this is a representation of the DNA that composition, or the DNA that makes up the territory of the steppe. So remember, steppe is synonymous with the Khazars, the territory of the Khazars, the territory of the Scythians, right? And so what this graph is representing is the DNA makeup, right? And so you'll see this pinkish color. So that's R1B1. Again, R1B1, territory of the Khazars, the majority of them are R1B1. And then you also see R1, it's kind of sort of associated with R1B1. I particularly throw it into the same group. But then you'll see this purple Q1A2. Don't know too much about that one. But then in the Caucasus Mountains, which is just below the steppe, just below the here they're kind of breaking that territory down into two places. Here you'll see J2, right? So J2 is the biggest portion in the Caucasus. Again, when we looked at J2, that's the area that went into Iran, right? The territory of ancient Ashkenaz as well. And you have multiple different flavors of J over here, right? But just wanted to point out to you, family, that even when you look at both of these areas, according to DNA, the majority of these guys are in that area of ancient Ashkenaz, right? Ancient Ashkenaz per DNA. All right, just to go through a couple of maps with you. And just wanted to show you that, I know this isn't like an ancient map, but I just want to show you that there are some maps where people do believe that, they see where ancient Ashkenaz is, but then they put ancient Ashkenaz in the territory of the Khazars. And that's because, we know that they migrated. I mean, there are old studies that talk about, the migration of these people. And one of which, Josephus, that everyone, knows and loves, and everyone always quotes. But Josephus talks about Gog and Magog, right? And let's just read a quick quote from Josephus. He says, Magog founded those that from here were the Magagites, but who are by the Greeks. Now, the Greeks are calling these Magagites, to Pastor Kelly's point, but who by the Greeks called Scythians. Scythians. So per Josephus, Gog and Magog, or the Magagites, were called Scythians during the time of the Greeks, right? Same territory of the Khazars, right? Same territory of the Khazars. And this is another resource / reference. And let's see here. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name other than Said. And he reads, it says, as to the Khazars, they are to the left of the inhabited earth towards the 7th clime, having over their heads the constellation of the plow. Their land is cold and wet. Hence, their complexions are white, their eyes blue, their hair flowing, and predominantly reddish, their bodies large, and their nature cold. Their general aspect, check this out, family. Their general aspect is wild. Their general aspect is wild. I think, and Pastor Kelly, I think you shared on your live today about, you had something about the disposition of the people that were in this area as well, right?
Yeah. And they were, And it's interesting when we're dealing with those people like the Scythians, they were referred to as being savages.
Yes. Yep. I think I have one or two more references that speak to that. Well, just wanted to show you that, even the Jewish Forward, picked up on this as well. And it's just to kind of take a look at some of these highlighted quotes where it says, but where the inhabitants of the Khazaria were red-haired. And this speaks to how did they look, family? Because one of the points I wanted to make was that the people of the land of Khazaria, they had a certain look to them. Family. Let's read it. It says, but were the inhabitants of Khazaria really red-haired, Esau? They were, according to Hispano-Arab historian and geographer Ali ibn Musa. All right. And just skip ahead, it says, who wrote that their complexions are white, their eyes blue, their hair flowing and predominantly reddish, their bodies large and their natures cold. Their general aspect is wild. It will seem evident, therefore, that from here derives the epithet, the Red Jews. And that is a thing, the Red Jews. There's a lot of history on the Red Jews. Right. And let's see, I thought there was a date and time stamp in here. Yeah, so just wanted to point out that during the 13th century, that this was like the general understanding, right, of what they look like, right? And just to keep going, it says here, because there was a certain connotation, there was a certain history that was associated with these people, kind of like a boogeyman, folklore that went along with it. And I was gonna start at the top, but I think I'll drop down to the last highlighted paragraph where it says, it was there starting in the 13th century that the belief developed that somewhere beyond the Caucasus lived the peoples of Gog and Magog. So let you know, family, that during the 13th century, they believed they knew where Gog and Magog was. Hashtag Josephus. And it says, the feared northern barbarians first mentioned by the prophet Ezekiel, who had prophesied that they would be humbled by God's wrath when they attempted to conquer the land of Israel, thus ushering in the Messianic age. And it says, German Christians identified Gog and Magog with the lost tribes. We'll get into that at a different teaching. But yep, Gog and Magog are also identified with the lost tribes. Shout out to brother Dante Fortson. He touched on this a little bit when he read some references about the 10 tribes being in that area as well. And it says, believe they were the forces of the Antichrist and called them Judean, because they were pictured as red-headed and red-bearded. And that's why you see on a lot of my pictures, I depict them as red-haired and red-bearded. That's based off of historical references. And it says, one day it was feared that they would seek to cross the mountains of the Caucasus, behind which they were contained, and overrun all of Europe. Now, this is where the folklore and reality kind of mix together. When you look at the DNA dispersal of these people, what you'll find is that they did indeed kind of burst forth from this area. Like all of a sudden, something happened, and a lot of folks believe that it was the pressure from the Huns, that were coming from the east, that caused them to flee over to the west. But in either case, they left that region and came into Europe. Their migration, we can track their migration using DNA, and we can also track their migration using references. What I also wanted to show you is just using the Encyclopedia Britannica, that these people were also being talked about by the Muslims at the time. The Muslims in the Quran, that even they talk about Gog and Magog, but what they called them is Yajuj and Majuj. And let's just read a little bit about the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it says, Yajuj and Majuj is Islamic eschatology. Two hostile corrupt forces that will ravage the earth before the end of the world. They are the counterparts of Gog and Magog in the Hebrew Bible and the Christian New Testament. They are mentioned in the surahs, this is in the Quran, surahs 18 and 21 of the Quran, the holy book of Islam. According to the Quran, a certain people terrorized by Yajuj and Majuj induced, and that word there, do Karnyan, by some scholars as Alexander the Great, and by others as either the Persian kings Cyrus II or Darius, to construct between Yajuj and Majuj. Let me see if I got it on the next slide. Yajuj and Yajuj, a great wall that they could neither scale or penetrate, trapping both behind two mountains until just before the last judgment. All right, so said a whole lot, family, but the takeaway here, family, is that during this time, this is kind of like Lord of the Rings stuff. During this time, there was a, I guess I want to call it a folklore or a tale or a history, where they believe that these people that were AKA the Khazarians, AKA the Yamnaya, AKA the Scythians, that they were being held back by this wall, right? There was this wall that held them back, but at one point in time, they got out and they got loose. And, you know, oddly enough, in history, we see these people burst forth and go across Europe. They literally conquer Europe. They become the aristocrats in Europe, the kings and queens in Europe, and you know, they basically take over the world. But that's a lesson for another day. But here's any comments on that, Pastor Kelly?
I know you're doing great, cuz. You're doing great.
All right, so here's this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, and you can see them constructing the wall. And here's another representation of the wall. And actually, let's talk about that wall. So in the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasus Mountains is the way that some people describe it, it is a string of, as a solid string of mountains, right? Impenetrable in certain cases. However, through that entire range of mountains, there is one pass that appears to go all the way through. It is called the Dario Gorge. And oddly enough, I mean, it appears to be some sort of ancient structure. You got it. You can see it there on the screen. It's like a bridge or something like that. That's kind of near the beginning of it. But it is a real thing, family. So it's called the Dario Pass. And this is just want to show you, how the Caucasus Mountains looks like. You can see it's like one continuous line of mountains. It's almost like a gate, right? That keeps someone in, right? And except, if you go to the right, of course, you can go around it that way. But if you're, anywhere in the middle or to the left, there's no way across it unless you go through the Dario Pass. And there's some odd things about this Dario Pass as far as like who's around it. You have like some underground cities. You have, there were reports of, not to get into a lot of folklore, but reports of hairy individuals, like full hair, like Esau type individuals there. But like I said, we'll save that for another day. But just kind of stick with some of the scientific research that we have. But just want to let you know that does exist. There is a Dario Pass that goes through the Caucasus Mountains, and it's called the Dario Gorge. Now, this was something strange that I came across and I actually shared with Morey Yehusha when I came across it. But this is something odd about the Caucasus Mountains. I was, doing this research about, and when I would look at old maps, this is what I would see, Pastor Kelly. See where it says Iberian?
Yeah.
Which is, Iber, which is Hebrew.
Yeah. So
I was like, why would you have this territory called the Hebrews at the base of the Caucasus Mountains? It was odd. I was like, man, what is that doing there? And you could find that in multiple places, right? And actually, this was like right in front of the Dario Pass, the one passage through the Caucasus Mountains, right? Where the folklore of the Muslims was that, there was a great gate that was built there to keep those guys out, you have this territory of the Hebrews right in front of it. Just thought that was odd. And during the, right around that area, you end up having a lot of these cave cities. Esau joined with the Horites, and his whole thing was living in cave cities. If you ever take a look at the Pastor Kelly, what's that? The area over in Esau's territory. I'm just drawing a blank on that area for now.
Not the Horite.
Well, it's like the territory of Mount Seir. I guess.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I'm just terrible with it. I'm drawing a blank too, because if I don't talk about it a lot,
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, Petra.
Okay, yeah. I'm just not familiar with it.
Yeah.
As far as I'm drawing a blank as well.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thanks Most High for bringing that back to my remembrance. But yeah, so it's Petra. So if you look at the territory of Petra, you'll see the same dwellings, right? You'll see the same dwellings. And remember, Petra was the territory of the Horites, the cave dwellers. And those same types of dwellings you'll also find right in the area of the Caucasus Mountains, right? And it's odd because like usually what I was noticing that wherever Esau kind of went to, you would see these dwelling places, like these caves. Like, I don't necessarily talk about it in this presentation, but if you're looking at the genealogy of Esau, and you see like the families of Esau, what he married into, a lot of us, we point out that Esau married into the Horites, but at the top of that chapter, the very first family he married into was the Hittites. And guess where the Hittites were? In Turkey. And guess what? In Turkey has some of the largest underground city complexes in the world. They have over 200 underground cities. Cappadocia is one of them. So it's like these cave cities seem to follow Esau wherever he goes. And I don't think I hadn't showed that slide just yet, but the Northern Kingdom, if you're reading the book of Amos, chapter 1, I think it's like verse where it talks about Gaza. I had in the previous video where it talked about Gaza was sold the Israel over to the Edomites. Then it talked about
Amos 1.
Yeah, it was Amos 1, but I don't have the verse in front of me.
I can pull it up real quick for you. Let me see here. Amos 1.
And it also talked about Tyrus too. So both.
And let me know if this is the correct one. This is Amos chapter 1, going down to. I'll just start at verse 5.
Okay.
I will break also the bar of Damascus and cut off the inhabitants from the plain of Avon, and him that holdeth the scepter from the house of Eden. And the people of Syria shall go into captivity unto Kir, saith Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captives, the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom.
All right. Wow.
And it goes on to say in verse 7, but I will send a fire on the wall of Gaza, and shall devour the palaces thereof.
Yep, that was it. And it also talked about Tyrus too. And it's like, Edom is definitely confirmed in that area. Like I said, it's and that's not the purpose of this video. In this video, we just wanted to focus on Gog and Magog, but we definitely have solid proof, solid evidence that Edom was also in that same area. And like I said, the pattern that I'm seeing is that it looks like wherever Edom was, you'll see these underground complexes. Even in Israel today, if you notice, they talk about Gaza, right? The Gaza Strip, and they talk about they have these underground complexes in Gaza, where they're bringing these weapons in, and they'll say how these these underground passages go all the way to Egypt and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that's I think that's a discussion for another day, but just an observation. All right, so let me fast forward through some of this stuff, family, and just kind of show you that not only do we have the Khazars in that area, not only do we have the Scythians in that area, but we also have the Neanderthals in that area. So what you're looking at, is a map of the different Neanderthal sites, where they were able to, find Neanderthal bones, and in some cases they were actually able to extract DNA. And so this particular map shows you the sites where they were able to extract DNA. And out of all these different sites of where they extracted DNA, what they found was that the people of Europe, their DNA was, when they take a look at the Neanderthal contribution in their DNA genome, they said that out of all these sites, there was one site that their Neanderthal DNA matched the closest, and it was the one in the Caucasus Mountains, Mizmiskaya. I think I pronounced that right. So when you see people go to 23andMe and they run these DNA reports and they say that, hey, you got 2% DNA, that DNA matches most closely the DNA from the Neanderthal in Mezmeskaya, which goes along with, the other DNA report about, blue eyes. Because when you look at, where blue eyes comes from, they kind of tell you without telling you that blue eyes actually comes from Neanderthal DNA. Because when they look at the genetic mutation that causes blue eyes, and they looked at in modern day humans, and they looked at the mutation that causes blue eyes in Neanderthals, they were almost identical, with the exception of 10 mutations, which meant that it was a relatively recent contribution from Neanderthals over to modern day humans. Anyway, kind of going off on a tangent there, but just wanted to show you that we have multiple DNA facts that point to where people came from, like where these people came from. They got the blue eyes. We have this match, this R1B1, which goes to that area. We have J2, which traces back to that area as well. Just to name a few. All right, and then let's talk a little bit about the Khazars, and just to show you that in the territory of the Khazars, there was a place called Mount Seir. And I talked about this in previous video, about the third Mount Seir. Like there's two Mount Seirs in the Bible, one over in the territory of the Horites, right? And Esau's territory. And there was another territory, I think it's over in Judah's territory, or a little bit above Judah's territory. But then the third Mount Seir, was in the Caucasus Mountains. In the territory of the Khazars. And Esau is synonymous with Mount Seir, right? So you're starting to get a picture that there was like a party going on over in this area. It was a party with Esau, Esau, Gog, Magog, Ashkenaz, and eventually we'll talk about the 10 tribes. But it says, in this letter, Hadassah speaks of the tradition according to which the Khazars once dwelt near the Seir, or the Seir Mountains. All right. And then just a quick note as far as like the movement of people, and this is what Pastor Kelly was talking about before, that, according to DNA, we can tell where people went to and came from. So you can see where it says Yamnaya, and you'll see a arrow going from Yamnaya down to Armenia. Or you can see an arrow going from Armenia up to Yamnaya. Right. And then eventually you'll see this arrow going off to the left where it says to northwest Europe. So according to DNA, we have an idea of where and when we see the migration of the DNA from this area. So we know these people eventually made it over to Europe. And this is just a quick comment from Herodotus, just to describe the people that's in the area. And again, it says, I'm sorry, let me back up. So in Herodotus, what Herodotus spoke about was, so if, in this area, he talked about how the, pale skin from this area was basically dispersed, among the local populations. And one of the ways that this occurred was through the Black Sea trade. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Black Sea slave trade, which occurred before the transatlantic slave trade. And the Black Sea slave trade dealt with Caucasians. Let me say that again. The Black Sea slave trade dealt with Caucasians. And let's read a quick comment from Herodotus that talks about this Black Sea slave trade. And it says, this is talking about how the people in the Caucasus Mountains were giving contributions to the Persians. And the contributions that they were giving to the Persians was involved giving of slaves from their territory. And it says gifts were acquired of the Koshans and their neighbors. And this is talking about the territory of the Khazars. Like I said, they have a different name here as well. They're called the Koshans in this particular reference, but it's the same people, same territory. Gifts were also required of the Koshans and their neighbors as far as the Caucasian mountains, which is as far as the Persians rule, which is as far as the Persian rule reaches. The country north of the Caucasus paying no regard to the Persians. It says, these were rendered every 5 years and are still so rendered, namely 100 boys and as many maidens. So in this particular reference, he talks about how they were given, basically 200 young people in total from the Caucasus. I think I also have another reference which showed that they were given upwards of 400 young maidens every 4 to 5 years from this area. And this is how you have the dispersion of that DNA from this area, right? The whitening from this area. And this is where we were talking about the Black Sea slave trade, right? And let's see, I'm just trying to see if there's anything worth mentioning here. It says the history of the Black Sea slave trade as a source of Mediterranean slaves stretched from ancient Greek colonies to human trafficking networks in the present day. At its height during the 14th and 15th centuries, the Black Sea slave trade was not the sole source of the Mediterranean slaves. All right. And here's just a book from Nell Painter. She's a professor at at Princeton University. And, in her presentation and in her book, she actually quotes John Baptiste Chardin. And the reason why I'm using her book as opposed to the actual reference, the reference was I believe it was like a French book. And so, of course, her write-up is in English. So I'm using hers because it's easier to see. But it says, Jean-Baptiste Chardin, also known as Sir John Chardin, a French Protestant Huguenot whose family were jewelers to the court of Louis the 16th or 14th or 15th, I think. No, 14th. Traveled routinely to Persia and India in the 1670s and 1680s, seeking rare baubles or whatever for the French royal household. His 2-volume account, Journal du Voyage du Chevalier Chardin, and the rest of that name, the travels of Sir John Chardin to Persia and the East Indies, describes a trip that deviated from his normal route. And again, the reason why I'm reading this is I want to give you some insight into what people were saying, who these people were in that area, that the area of Khazar, the territory of Gog and Magog. I want you to read about the people that actually went there. I want you to hear their own description of the people that were there. That's the reason why we're reading this reference. And just to pick it up, it says, preventing his going via Venice through Constantinople. I'll probably skip through most of this. So basically, family, he was trying to go somewhere, but he ended up having to go through the Caucasus Mountains, right? And when he describes the people, it says people without religion, without police. It says a scientist at heart. He took meticulous notes while racketed about, by constant fear. Chardin loathed this chaotic Black Sea region where brigades controlled the highways, often threatening his goods, his freedom, and his life. As he says of the Carsians, it is impossible for them to glimpse an opportunity for thievery without taking advantage of it. They eat with their hands, go to the bathroom right next to where they eat, and then continue eating without washing their hands. Chardin is totally disgusted.
Oh no, real quick, guys. I'm laughing because family, I am like, when it comes to stuff like that, I am a stickler to that, right? At work, right? And
Uh-oh.
man, and it's a pet peeve of mine. I've literally seen people, Caucasians, come into the men's room with their food. I'm like, if I got to use a public space, I'm not bringing food into the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
They will bring their food into the bathroom. And come on, family, the men's bathroom it's that thing. And Benai, you know where I'm going at with this. If you walk into the stalls, and man, y'all know what I'm talking about. Before you go in the men's bathroom, you tie your shoes. Make sure your shoestrings are tied. Because more than likely, there's some urine on the floor, especially near the stall. So you don't want to have to tie your shoes with urine on it. I actually literally cut off a pair of shoestrings off my shoes because I didn't want to touch it. And had to buy new shoestrings. So to your point, I'm just giving a little clarity. I mean, like a little visual here of how how nasty that is, right? Because again, can you imagine someone bringing food that they're going to eat into the bathroom where air, is open to the public, and turn around and eat that? I've had directors, I've had VPs didn't even know, they go right in and come right out without washing their hands. The next I'm in the meeting giving a presentation, and hey, Rich, I want to introduce you to VP such and such. And it's the guy, and I have to pretend that my hands are full to give him an elbow. So, I'll purposely like, oh man, let me grab my stuff to make sure my hands are full. So I'm just using that kind of as giving a visual of just to what you just read here, and you'll see, some behaviors that are handed down to certain groups of people. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, family, this is a firsthand account, right? So he's traveling through that area. This is Chardin. And he says, they eat with their hands, go to the bathroom right next to where they eat, and then continue eating without washing. Chardin is totally disgusted. The habits of the Mingrelians, Caucasian people on the northeast coast of the Black Sea, are vile. They and their neighbors are huge drunkards, worse than Germans, and all the northern Europeans when it comes to drink. Not only do Mangrelians, forgive me if I'm messing up that name, consider assassination, murder, and incest as admirable traits. They steal each other's wives without compunction. The women are not much better. They wear too much makeup. Their bodily stench overcomes whatever amorous intention their appearance might have inspired. These people are complete savages, Chardin rails. They used to be Christians, but now they have no religion at all. They live in wooden cabins and go around particularly naked. The only people who go there are slave traders. Slave traders. So I'll spare you the part of going through the rest of this, but the takeaway here, family, is that when you look at the firsthand accounts, you'll see that these firsthand accounts, they describe them as being savages. And actually, like I said, Pastor Kelly went over a different reference in his Shabbat service earlier today. So again, we have Gog and Magog and Esau and Ephraim, all in this area. I consider like a smorgasbord, a mixing pot, where you have all these these three groups. And anytime you throw Esau in there, you're talking about a people or a person, that a group of people that have a perpetual hatred for for Israel, right? And that's why I tell people, it's like, you may not, if those are people out there that are still in denial that they're Israel, fine. But the thing about it is, Esau's still going to be Esau, regardless of whether or not you claim your Israel heritage or not. And according to Scripture, he is going to hate you, whether or not you believe you're Israel or not. I mean, it's the Most High's declaration, right? And if you look at Genesis chapter 27, verse 41, it says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing. That's one thing that stuck out to me, Pastor Kelly. It says, the reason why he hated Jacob was because of the blessing, right? Wherein his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning of my father are at an end. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. So if you're wondering, like, man, why is it that anytime we get up, anytime we have a Black Wall Street, and basically, fan, the way I look at it, anytime your blessings start shining, somebody gonna start to get a little hatred in their heart and want to burn something down. But that's just my take on it, family. But then just to kind of go back over to Amos, and this is what we read earlier about Esau, right? And this one talks about Edom, which is just another name for Esau. And I just want to show you that his hatred that he has for the children of Israel is perpetual, forever, right? It goes on and on and on, even to this day. And it says, thus says Yahuwah, for 3 transgressions of Edom and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. Forever. All right. And when we look with that in mind, family, with that in mind, and again, I haven't gone over the references that prove that Esau was in that, in the Khazar area just yet. But once we get there, and what you'll find is that, those people in that area, they have a certain look and feel. And we read at least one of those references that talk about how they look, right? And what I just wanted to show you is that the description of the German tribes lines up perfectly with the look of the Khazars. And this is a quote from Tacitus. And here Tacitus is describing the Germans. And it says, hence too, the same physical peculiarities throughout so vast a population. So basically he's saying the same physical peculiarity, I don't know why I have problems with that word, peculiarities throughout so vast a population. So throughout this population, they all have this look. And it says, all have fierce blue eyes, red hair, huge frames, fit only for certain exertion, right? Just saying there's a certain look and feel about these people. And we've already read we already read this one earlier. But what I want to show you, family, is that when we were, before when we were reading a bunch of references about the Spanish and Portuguese brews being dark, and we were mainly focused on the Spanish and Portuguese brews, and reference after reference after reference, we read about, it just said that they're dark complexion, black, brown, swarthy, right? All the synonyms you can come up with. Also in some of those references were descriptions about the Germans, in particular, the northern Germans. And what I want to show you is that they too had a certain look and feel. And it says, I'm going to pick it up where it says, I guess I can move my mouse here. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexion. And for those of you that are maybe new to this awakening, the old references that were published from the 1850s in general, 1850s and older, consistently talk about the Spanish and Portuguese Jews as being black, dark. They were even called Negro. They were even called Negroes. In fact, the name Negro is not only just a Spanish word meaning black, it is also a Sephardic Jewish, well, I don't want to say Jewish name. It is a Sephardic name of Judah. It is a famous name in Spain and Portugal. It is a famous Jewish name in Spain and Portugal. Forgive me for saying Jewish, but they're the sons of the tribe of Judah. So, and that's what a lot of people miss. It's like, even when you're calling yourself Negro, all this time you were calling yourself by the name of a tribe of Judah, found in Spain and Portugal. And by the way, that's where, Spain and Portugal is where the transatlantic slave trade started off. Right. Anyway, I know I'm going on a tangent, but continue with this lesson. It says, or this reference, it says, the Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, and his hair is uniformly black, while as the German Jew is often as fair as any German and has light to red hair with blue eyes. Red hair with blue eyes. All right. So let me bring this all the way home, family. I want to bring this all the way home back over to the States. So remember, I previously just read to you that Esau has a perpetual hatred for his brother, right? And that even to this day, whether or not you believe you're Israel or not, according to the scriptures, according to the words of the Heavenly Father, Esau is going to hate you. He's going to pursue you, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that when we look back across the spectrum of history here in the United States, particularly here in America, you know, so-called African Americans have had some traumatic events, massacres happen to us here in the States. But one of the things that we missed was something that pointed back to this hatred that goes back to Esau. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I believe this was in at a grocery store where this guy that you see being arrested walks into a grocery store and he starts shooting people. Right? This is particularly, he picked this grocery store because it was in a black neighborhood. Notice his hair. Notice his hair, red hair. Right? When I usually say red hair, blue eyes, light skin. Sometimes the eyes change. But then what I did, family, is that I started going back through some of the major catastrophes, major events, massacres that has happened in our community. And when I started doing that, I started finding a pattern. And I started noticing a small thing like the hair, right? This was a young man. He went into a church. I believe this was in North Carolina. Shot and killed 9 people, I believe. Notice the hair. George Floyd. No, now all of these people have red hair, but you can see at least one of them have red hair. And I kept going, family. I was like, and there was a situation here, and I think this was in Atlanta, where you had Rashad Brooks, the police officer that murdered Rashad Brooks, red hair. And then I was thinking, family, I was like, well, man, that's interesting. I was like, what about Martin Luther King? I was like, surely Martin Luther King wasn't assassinated by someone with red hair and blue eyes. James Earl Ray, hair brown, /red, eyes blue. Like I said, family, you know, whether or not you believe, you can believe that you're not Israel all day long, but one thing's for sure: if you are Israel, that means Esau is coming for you. And he was coming for you all this time. And this is Aubrey Brooks. You'll see red hair. So I'm gonna bring it recent, bring it current, family. So currently, you know, one of the things that we're dealing with here in the States is, you know, a lot of people know about the situation in Florida where it comes to education. And, you know, they're trying to take Black history out of the Bible in Florida and trying to give us some, you know, different education in Florida, right? But you may not know that this person also has red hair because maybe he uses midnight cocoa bean from time to time. But Ron DeSantis, red hair. So I'm just letting you know, family, you know, Esau is out there. The Bible is real. And the history of these people trace back to a certain area, which is that area of the Khazars, the area of the ancient Ashkenaz. And in that area, you know, we have it's like a group of like 3 to 4 people. We have biblical Ashkenaz, we have biblical Gog and Magog, we also have Esau mixed in with them. And then the last thing that we'll talk about, most high willing, is the 10 tribes also being part of that conglomerate. And because the thing to remember, family, is that when Israel was separated into those two nations, remember, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom were warring against each other. They were straight up enemies. There was a time where the northern kingdom actually tried to replace the lineage of David with their own lineage. So that's, like I said, that's a topic for another day. But let me check out the. I'm going to stop this sharing this PowerPoint. So hang on one second, family. Let's see if I can stop it. There we go. All right, family. Well, any comments, Pastor Kelly? Because I know, Pastor Kelly, you have some upcoming lessons on Gog and Magog, and I know you plan on going deep into this subject. Uh-oh. Yep, you're still on mute. Uh-oh. I think you're still on mute, Pastor Kelly. Let me see if I can unmute you. Unmute mic.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, loud and clear.
No, you did a great job. And, this is something that, especially now that we see what's on the table, what's happening overseas with the whole Israeli-Hamas conflict. And I believe that this is a excellent time to visit these passages, because there's a lot of teachings that are out there coming from the church, that are not teaching the scriptures and identifying who's who correctly. A few of them have gone to the point of identifying some, but they have stopped short about, for example, the ancient Israelites versus what we see today. You'll never see them talk about the Ashkenazis. You'll actually never really see them pull up the information about the Scythians and who they're connected to. So it's like they'll get to that kind of like to that edge, but they don't want to take that leap. Many of them, I believe, are scared to take that leap. And those that have really studied the prophecies, and when you go into the details of it, it's like, wait a minute, okay, something's just not lining up right here. And especially when you start identifying the players on the pieces on the chessboard. So I just want to say again, great job, and family. This is why it's so important to identify who's who, not just the Israelites, but all those that have come against Israel. Because if we don't, we can indirectly still co-sign on an agenda to destroy us. You know what I mean? That hatred of the spirit of Esau towards the Most High's chosen people. So I'll say again, great job, Benaiah. You did a great job with laying the information out, and especially giving the clarity with the DNA, with the maps, so people can see a visual. So great job.
Oh, thanks, Pastor Kelly. Well, one of the things I know me and you kind of talked about off in an earlier conversation is, this thing where, there's a lot of Christian pastors going out today trying to tie in prophecy to what's going on over in the Middle East today, and we were looking at Ezekiel. Ezekiel was one of those places where they were trying to cherry pick prophecies to try to make it fit. This is just to try to make sense out of it all, right? Because you have all this war that appears to be leading to World War III. Whether or not it does, who knows? But it sure does look like it's getting close. I'm by trade, family, I'm a IT guy, and it's funny because in the IT field, especially when you're babysitting a system, designing a system, babysitting it, and if it ever fails, we do this thing where we look for patterns. Like we try to figure out, like, so what was the system doing right before it failed? Like, was it
checking the logs and everything, seeing what the logs say, and
we built a profile. It's like, what happened? And just to kind of make it simple, it's like if the system, right before the system crashed, the dog was barking, a fire truck was going down the street, and the lights flickered, then the system crashed, right? So going forward, we're going to be looking for that pattern, right? And anytime that pattern comes up, maybe it might lead to a system crash, maybe it won't lead to a system crash. But regardless of whether it does or it doesn't, we have to be prepared if it does, right? And so same thing with these, with these prophecies, when we look at all this stuff that's happening over in the Middle East, and you're saying, well, maybe this is it. And maybe some people are saying, well, maybe this isn't it. But it's like, this has that same pattern profile. It fits the profile of the prophecies. So you might want to be ready just in case. Just in case.
But absolutely.
Yeah. But I was just going to say just one real quick, as far as like the whole thing with the Ezekiel, and that is, we have pastors like, taking little bits and pieces of prophecy out of there. But the one thing that Pastor Kelly, that I find them not doing, or they purposely avoid the scriptures that talk about Esau taking possession of Israel.
That's right.
They always skip over that. I know when I was in the Christian church, out of all the books in the Bible, we would talk about all the books in the Bible, Pastor, but we would not go into Obadiah. Oh my goodness. I didn't even know Obadiah was in there because we always skip over the book of Obadiah, which talked about the judgment of Esau, and it talked about Esau taking possession of Israel. Have you seen the same thing, Pastor Kelly?
Oh yeah. That I've never heard a pastor, matter of fact, if we take it a step further, anyone that called themselves in the church that supposed to be end time prophecy specialists, especially when we start getting into eschatology, you never hear them touch on those passages because it opens up a lot more. And even just a point, and I want to make it touch on a point here, when we deal with like World War III, right? If we understand the history through the lens of the Israelites, the transatlantic slave trade was a world war. Because when you look up the definition of what a world war is, it pretty much means the major countries coming together to fight it collectively with a common cause, with a common threat. When we look at the transatlantic world war, we see the key players of that time, the French, the Brits. We see them at that time because when you really start studying Africa, you'll see how the French, the Brits, how they really cut up that whole territory. And you'll see the players that you touched on, the descendants of Japheth. You'll see it when you start studying names. You'll see some of the names that they created for certain territories of Africa. You'll see those same names over in Australia. Right. So when we really look at it from that perspective, and the amount of people, and even within the Catholic doctrines, they declare war on our people. Our ancestors that was just chilling, minding their own business. You know what I mean? So they declare war. So when we look at even Revelations from a whole nother perspective, when it describes, these long hair, locusts, so to speak, with stingers, doesn't that sound like the Caucasians with long hair and with stingers? Their guns that they were using, the weapons that they were using.
Yep.
It's a lot to unpack, but just from the perspective of, when I look at the prophecies, I had to literally, and I used to be an end time prophecy junkie. You know what I mean? End time prophecy junkie, family. And these are the spaces that I used to be in terms of studying it. But, once I cleared myself from that Eurocentric perspective of always including them on our side of the prophecies, then I got to really apply it a lot clearer. So, but again, you hit it on the nail. And what we see today, even though we know that this is not the term that they coined, the Battle of Armageddon, the battles of all battles. And that's where they would go to the chapter 30 of Ezekiel, trying to say, oh, this is the battle of all battles. This is the Battle of Armageddon, Well, Revelations chapter 20 says something different, but we can still identify the players, the people there.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was like when you start seeing Iran, kind of raise up and start talking a certain way, because I hadn't really shared any of the latest comments from that were coming out of Iran, and but it's serious, some serious stuff, family. And you see them going up against Israel, and knowing that Esau has a very bad judgment that's coming up at some point in time, right? Some people kind of break it up into different times, like multiple judgments, but either way, that's on the horizon, and that the Medes are going to, put the boots to some folks. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, family. I'm just like you all. I'm in the wait and see mode. So anyway, but hey, thank you, Pastor Kelly, for hopping on, and I apologize for keeping you longer than I said I was going to keep you. Do you think you're still going to do your live? If so, I want to direct people.
Yeah, I pushed it back to 11:15.
Okay.
So I'm a late junkie, when it comes to that. So everyone know that I'm doing a graveyard shift. So I'll be up late. I'm going to start it at 11:15, and encourage everyone. Hey, feel free to migrate over to We Woke now, because we are going to deal with that Israel scattered this Israel. That's the discussion for tonight.
Ooh.
And that Israel that we see scattered this Israel. So we'll touch on that, and we'll get into some key information there to kind of continue to piggyback on the discussion that we had here. So that's my discussion for tonight. And if you get a chance, cuz take a look at the comment I put in the private chat.
Okay.
So just want to put that out there. But yeah. So I'll get ready to transition over there to give that presentation. But we're going to continue to keep this momentum going with this discussion here. So we'll be there. We'll start at 11:15 on the nose to go through that presentation and just go from there.
Hallelujah. All right, so family, you'll have about 15 minutes as we wrap up on this live here. Go and grab a snack, get you something to drink, pay your water bill, and then then we'll hop over on the We Woke Now platform. But again, I just want to thank you everyone for dialing in or to tuning in to this presentation. Thank you, family, and I also want to thank those for your contributions. Thanks for the super chats, the stickers. Thank you, family, for your support. Thank you for your prayers, family. And hey, I pray that the Most High watch over you, bless you, and keep you through these trying times, family. Grant you peace and shalom. All right. So, all right, family. Pastor Kelly, I guess if you don't have anything else.
That's it for me.
Okay. All right, family. Well, with that, we'll sign off. Like I said, just go and grab a break, and we'll continue over on the We Woke Now platform. All right, family. Stay blessed, Israel. Love you, family. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.